And with that, I think we're ready to begin. So let's get going. Here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to start out with an introduction to asset management. Then we're going to talk about digitizing your assets. We're going to talk about monitoring their status and measuring their performance. And of course, don't forget to stick around for our live Q&A, where you can test me on my knowledge and we'll see what we can answer for you. A couple of commonly FAQs here. Is this webinar being recorded and will I get a copy? Yes, absolutely. The recording will be sent to you via email on September 20th, if not before. And how can I ask questions throughout the webinar? So we have several of our wonderful support team on the line with us today. They are real human beings, not bots. So you can pop your questions through the chat or the Q&A panel in the Zoom console at any time. Take a look now and make sure you see where that is. Type them in there as you go. And our team will either answer them for you right then and there, or they may save a couple back to ask me at the end of the session. Let's get into it. A little bit about MaintainX. Our mission is to transform the way frontline professionals manage the equipment and facilities that power our world. We are building for the long term, pushing innovation in mobile workflows, real-time analytics, and open APIs. And of course, we partner with our customers. We have here a world-class team that develops and supports our products with industry expertise in manufacturing, facilities, and more. We also put a few of our awards on that right-hand side. There's always new ones coming in. These are our current favorites. So just in case you needed any external backing, we're pretty great. Industry-leading companies trust MaintainX with their operations. So as I always tell you, you may see some big names on here, some things you're familiar with, but MaintainX really has something for everyone. From our largest, multinational corporations down to regular small mom and pop shop operations, we are here to help you. There is something here at MaintainX for everyone. And I'm happy to get into a bit more today on how we can help you as it comes to asset management. So let's begin. Before we go into asset management, we need to take it back a step. What is an asset? Let's understand assets. So an asset is a physical piece of equipment, machinery, or infrastructure used at a facility. Examples of assets in different industries include conveyor belts, industrial robots, CNC rotors for manufacturing. We're looking at vehicles, engines, lifts for fleet management. We're looking at appliances, furniture, HVAC, all that good stuff for facilities and property managers, and maybe some kitchen equipment, elevators and laundry machines when it comes to hospitality. So really within there, as you can tell, assets can have varying levels of criticality, depending on the impact their failure would have on customers' safety and the environment. So some of our assets may be absolutely mission critical. If this stops, we stop producing. If this breaks, our customers are going to have a major health issue. Those would be our critical assets. We can have important assets, which are maybe not mission critical, but we definitely need them. Maybe we have a spare, but we got to get this working. And our normal assets would be things like, for example, we see furniture in there, or maybe one forklift goes down. It's not going to stop production, but not ideal. So really, an asset is anything. It doesn't need to be a biggest, most important piece of equipment, but it's any physical piece of equipment, machinery, or infrastructure that you have. One very commonly asked question that I get, at least from my customers, is what's the difference between an asset and a part? And you'll give me an example and you'll say, is this an asset or a part? Because it kind of seems like it could be both. Frequent question, don't worry. In simple terms, a part is a consumable with high turnover that's used in repairs, whereas your assets is your equipment upon which maintenance can be performed. So your part will be used to maintain an asset. Hope that helps clear things up just a little bit. So let's get into asset management. Now we know what an asset is. What is asset management? Asset management is the process of acquiring, deploying, operating, maintaining, and decommissioning equipment, machinery, and infrastructure. That's a lot of 5-syllable words in there. What we mean is asset management is anything that relates to your asset's lifespan, from birth to death. The whole time, anything you do to it, that is asset management. The goal of asset management is to increase that lifespan. The goal there is to reduce our overall spend and maximize our investment. Think of it this way. If we spend 40K on a piece of equipment that's supposed to last us 10 years and it lasts us 20, we've just saved our company an extra 40K plus inflation that it would have cost us in 10 years' time. If we have an asset that we spend 40K on, supposed to last 10 years, it only lasts us 5, we've just doubled the cost of that piece of equipment. So asset management is really there to make sure our assets meet or exceed their target lifespan with minimal downtime and maintenance costs. So let's reduce the amount we have to spend on those assets in terms of acquiring them, and let's make sure we're efficient with the labor and materials we're putting into them along the way. Why does this matter? First point here, maximizing production. Poor asset management practices can decrease production capacity by 5% to as much as 20%. Now, I want you to think about your facility. I want you to think of your operations if you're in manufacturing here. Imagine your production capacity suddenly went down by 20%. How would that affect your team? Now imagine it suddenly increased by 20%. How much would that impact your team? Just something to think about. We also want to focus here on mitigating risks. Assets can be hubs of risk. Effective asset management makes organizations more resilient to external factors. I'm talking here anything environmental, security, safety, health, all of that good stuff. Assets, they do give us a lot of risk. We need them, but they are risk hubs. So let's minimize that risk as much as possible through good asset management practices. A well-measured maintenance program is the foundation upon which good asset management practices can be built. Louder for the people in the back. A well-measured maintenance program is the foundation upon which good asset management practices can be built. Maintenance is the heart of our organization here. This is how we get good asset management. However, when we're thinking about good asset management, there's a lot of buzzwords. There's a lot of things that are thrown around, and it can be deeply overwhelming, right? Here are some of the things I see on a daily basis, and here we've got EHS, CMMS, decreased MTTR, condition-based maintenance, increased MTBF, Industry 4.0, asset availability, IoT, OEE, EAM, preventive maintenance, predictive maintenance. Whew, breathe. That's a lot. Let's just take it all away for a second. Let's ignore what's coming down on us, all of these different buzzwords, all these different terms that are being pushed in. And let's take it back to basics. We want to simplify and we want to streamline. We have 4 key steps here. We need to document, monitor, maintain, and improve. Firstly, documentation. What assets do we have in our facility? Monitor. How are those assets running? Maintain. Are we maintaining those assets to the best of our ability? And 4, improve. Can we improve our maintenance to care for this asset? Can we increase that lifespan a little bit? And that's what we're going to discuss today. We're mainly going to be getting into documenting, monitoring, and improving. But if you want to know more about building a really killer PM program, we have a couple of resources available to you. The fabulous Vincent Landry and Nick Haas have hosted a masterclass session on building a PM program. It was incredibly valuable. We're going to pop the recording in the chat of the Zoom right now. If you want to take a look at that recording, you can do so. And I would highly recommend joining their next session, which is an open Q&A session about best practices with building a PM program. So should you have any questions on that topic, join that session. Vincent is an ex-engineer and an absolute pro, and Nick Haas is no less than the co-founder of MaintainX. So a really great session to join if you have questions on that front. And we'll cover everything else today. Firstly, let's get into asset digitization. The reality of asset digitization is that in this day and age, digitization has become a requirement. It's got to be done. I know we've all heard it 100 times in the last week. While there can be high barriers to entry when it comes to creating a full digital list, the drawbacks of having assets with no digital footprint include asset data that is siloed from your other data streams, specifically work execution data, and manual and time-intensive processes when it comes to updating asset records. All this to say, I know it's a pain to digitize your assets. I know how many assets some of you have. I work to help put them into the system. It takes a lot of time and effort, but also it takes a huge amount of time and effort to manually update asset records when you don't have them digitized, and also to be able to be effective when you have work orders that are in no way related to your records of your assets themselves. That in itself is a lot of work. So why does it matter? Why should we reinvest the work from kind of firefighting on this side into actually digitizing our assets on this side. Firstly, audit compliance, name of the game. Without the ability to pool asset and work data, it is incredibly difficult to document work performed on our assets. So when you get audited, when someone comes in and says, okay, where's your February PM for this conveyor? We don't want to be panicking. We don't want to be filing through a cabinet trying to find something there. We want to be able to navigate directly to our asset record and see, yep, here's everything that was done in the last year. Second point here, technological compatibility. Digitized assets facilitate progress towards other Industry 4.0 frontiers, such as automation, IoT, and cloud computing. So a lot of you are asking me at the moment, oh, I want to get more into condition-based maintenance or predictive maintenance, not necessarily seeing when something's gone down or seeing I should be doing this every month, but seeing based on this exact pressure level, based on this vibration reading, I should be doing this in the next month. We can't get into that level of advancement without first having our assets digitized. So a quick poll for you to kick us off. Where does your asset data currently live? There is no wrong answer here. Please be honest. You've got 4 options: in MaintainX, in a separate system, in a spreadsheet, or we do not have a full list. And that's okay. If you don't have a full list, if it lives in someone's brain, or we just assume we know what we have on site, that's okay. So now, all right, let's take a look. Oh, we love to see it. So 47% of you have it in MaintainX. Good to see. Let's see how we can build on that. 9% in a separate system, 13% in a spreadsheet, and 30% we do not have a full list. So what I'm seeing there is we've got about, let's call it 45% in MaintainX and 45% not having something within a CMMS, within your maintenance system. That's okay. We're going to work on that today. All righty. Another poll. How many of your assets in any system, in any, other CMMS, in MaintainX, and in EAM, whatever you're using, how many have been fully documented? When I say fully, I mean with their serial numbers, with VINs, with everything like that. 90 and above, 71 to 90%, 51 to 70%, or less than half. I'm intrigued by this one. I want to see if it lines up with my expectations from my clients here at MaintainX. All right, let's have a look. As expected, absolutely. We've only got about 17% in that top bracket, a good third above 70%, which is great to see, but about 45%, 0 to 50%. That's okay. Let's see on how we can get that number up. Let's see how we can get more of your assets digitized. Let's take a look, shall we? I'm going to hop across into MaintainX. There we go. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up our Assets tab on the left-hand side here. So as you can see, I have a list of my assets on the left-hand side, and I have the asset detail on the right-hand side. To start out, I'm going to take you through an asset that has already been built. So let's look at this air compressor right here. I can see what it is. I can see that I have a meter linked to it. It's linked to my vibration sensor. I can see a description with some information. I can even put in a picture, many pictures as you want there, and any files, typical things that are relevant here. It might be a video, it might be a manual, it might be a warranty information, anything that's relevant. Use this as your hub. Pop it in there. I then have a range of custom fields in here. So each one of these 8 fields that you see in here is something that wasn't in the system when I got it. I added it in because it's relevant to my organization. You can add as many custom fields as you like. I'll show you how to in just a second. I've even got my assets grouped by type to help my organization, and I've got a QR code attached right here. I can see where in my facility this is. I can see its level of criticality, and I can also see my sub-assets, which are themselves fully fleshed out assets, just grouped underneath my parent asset. So of course, my drive motor and my tank are part of my compressor. If I wanted to, I could have an asset underneath even that. In MaintainX, you can have up to 5 levels of asset hierarchy. So should you need further levels of hierarchy, go ahead and put it in. I have 3 parts that are relevant in the repair of my compressor. I can see the vendor that I get this compressor from, any related procedures. I can even see my mean time between failures data, and I can see any work history that has been done on this asset. So we flash back our brain to say in audit compliance here, we don't want to be scrambling to find that piece of information. You won't be now. You just go and find that asset in your asset listing. And there we go. I can see all the work that was done here. Seems like this one's given me a lot of grief with corrective actions. Beautiful. So now let's get into making a new asset here. I'm going to give you 3 different ways of adding an asset into MaintainX. The first way is going to be the manual way. Top right-hand corner, we go to new asset, and I can put my information in here. So I'm just going to call this test compressor. Again, I can add in any picture or files. I can say its location. I can give it a criticality. I already have a compressor. It's my backup, so I'm going to put it important, not critical. I can put in any relevant information. As you can see, I'm very good at real assets. And these are the custom fields that I have added in my account. So I'm going to say this was purchased very, very recently. It was exorbitantly expensive. And I can put in an annual depreciation value in here as well, even a warranty end date. These are all things that I've decided are relevant. VIN number in this case, not relevant. So I'm going to leave it blank. There we go. I'm going to have it automatically generate my barcode. I'm going to link it as utility, put in my vendor, and I could associate a parent asset if relevant. But there we go. 2 minutes and I've made a very real asset in here. A couple of things I want to highlight. First thing is that only the custom fields I have filled out have shown up. So should you have some custom fields that are relevant for some assets and not for others, don't worry. You just leave them blank on the assets they're not relevant for, and then they won't show up if they're not filled out. Second thing is that immediately I have an asset status. I can see that this is online. We're going to get more into that in the next section, so stay tuned. I've talked a lot about custom fields. I want to show you how to add one. Bottom left-hand corner, settings, features. We go to assets and customize asset fields. As you can see, I have a fair few in here. You can add anything that you like. It can be multi-line text, single-line text, a single select, i.e. a drop-down. It can be a date, a link, whatever you would like. All right, so method 1, I've made an asset manually. Method 2, we have a bulk import template. That is an Excel sheet, essentially, that you can just fill out with the information you have of your assets, and we can pull that into the system for you in bulk and save you some time. It doesn't need to be a perfect list. We can always keep adding after the fact, and we can always do a bulk update as well. So if to start out, you just have the names of all your assets, we can import that. And then after that fact, you decide, oh, I've got this other list that has all of their manufacturing information on it. I have the purchase information over here. Great. Send that to us. We can bulk update as well. Show you what that looks like. What I'm looking at here, let me zoom in. There we go. What I'm looking at here is the import workbook. I'm automatically on my locations tab, but I'm going to change to assets. And as you can see in here, I've put in a fair amount of information about my assets. It's not all perfectly filled out, but I have the information I have on hand put in here, and I'm going to send that to the MaintainX support team via support ticket portal or via support contact support if you want a live chat, and they're going to pull that right into the system for me, so save me some time. So to recap, first method, manual. Second method, import workbook. Now, third exciting option that we have here is our newly released Asset Hub. So have you ever thought, okay, great, I can get my information in the system for sure, but there's some information I'm going to be missing. I just wish there was a way I could get it in easier and have that information direct from my manufacturer. Yes, you have. So this is Asset Hub from MaintainX. Within here, you can see OEM approved maintenance plans for your most important equipment. So if I were to go through here and say, all right, I've got my Komatsu wheel loader. It's got the model in there. It's got 11 parts associated. It's got a couple of documents and manuals. I don't need to put that in manually. I don't need to fill out the import workbook for this asset. I can just install it directly from our asset page, and it will pull that information into the system and populate it. It's really cool, very new. I recommend you go and check it out. That's getmaintainx.com/assets. So 3 methods. We're looking manually inputted, imported in bulk, or taken direct from MaintainX Asset Connect from your OEM's information. That's a lot of information there. Let's get into some best practices. Firstly, use clear and standardized asset naming conventions. Make it easier for technicians to search for assets in the system by giving them titles that match how they are commonly known at your facilities. Reduce complexities in asset hierarchy where possible. This is what I was mentioning when I tell you we have 5 levels of asset hierarchy available. Let's not use them all for the sake of it. Let's keep things as simple and streamlined as we can for the time being. Save time by using MaintainX's bulk import template. Just showed you how to do it. Send that on to support. They have a really fast turnaround time. So let us take some of that work off your shoulders. And fourthly here, import directly from MaintainX's Asset Hub. Like I say, includes all the relevant sub-assets, parts, and PMs. What could be better? So we know now how to digitize our assets. Let's get into monitoring them. The reality of asset status monitoring. In order to develop a truly strategic maintenance plan, maintenance professionals need insight into how often your assets go offline, why your assets go offline, and how long it takes to get them back online. When asset status data is missing or when it's siloed, that is, when it's kept separate from our work orders and our work data, alignment between maintenance and asset management becomes extremely difficult. And as we mentioned, maintenance and asset management, hand in hand. We need to make sure those are kept together. Why does that matter? Firstly, over or underspending. Optimizing the amount you invest in parts and maintenance for each asset requires insight into the frequency and the severity of the downtime. We need to know that information. How frequently does it happen? How bad is it actually? To know, are we going to put this labor into it? How are we going to do this labor? We need that all to be kept nice and tight together. Secondly here, quantifying downtime. Knowing exactly when assets transition between online and offline allows you to measure the true cost of downtime, which strengthens budgetary arguments. So I know we're no stranger to budgetary constraints. Everyone across the entire industry, I feel, is tightening their belts here. So if we go and ask for X amount of money for our next year for our team, it's more likely we're going to get that when we're able to say, because we reduced downtime by this much, saving this amount of money, or because downtime was X amount, so we need to decrease that by investing in this new piece of equipment, whatever it might be. We need numbers, facts, statistics to back up our argument. Trust me, I'm very good at arguing. Let's give you a quick poll here. Monitoring the status of assets. How are you currently keeping track of problematic and downed assets? You can select all that apply. So SCADA, PLC systems, IoT sensors, manually in MaintainX, other, or I'm not. Again, there is no wrong answer. All right, let's have a look. Brilliant. Manually in MaintainX, 43%. Happy about that? I'm not, or other, coming in combined at about 50%, and about 7% of people are using IoT sensors and SCADA and PLC. That's great. That's about as technical as you get. So let's see how we can get there. How can we grow? Asset statuses. Always fun stuff. I'm going to hop back across into MaintainX over here, and I'm going to show you how we can change asset status within the system. There are 3 ways of doing it. But before we do that, we want to make sure we have our asset statuses properly configured, right? So your system will come with 3 base statuses. It will come with online, offline, and do not track. You can see for me, I've added a few more in for my account because this is the data we like to get into. We want to know if something's offline. Why is it offline? But there's one quite common thing I'm missing in here. So I decided I want to add another custom status. No problem. Let's do it together. I'm going to go to settings. I'm going to go to features, I'm going to go to assets and asset status. Here we go. And I'm going to add a new offline reason in here. Oh, there we go. Beautiful. So you can add in the statuses that are relevant for you over here. Now, 3 methods. Always with the 3 methods on these webinars. 3 methods of changing your asset status. The first one is to navigate to your asset page. So that might be via, on the desktop, going to assets and pulling up your asset like this, or it might be on the floor by scanning the QR code associated with your asset. So I'm on my phone, I've scanned this QR code, and it brings me directly to my asset page. What I can do now is just change the status. I'm going to say, actually, I'm going into offline operator error. This is an unplanned downtime, and it's been offline since an hour ago. Is it just my parent asset or is it everything underneath? Well, it's actually everything. And there we go. I have changed the status. First method done. Second method is actually within our work orders. So let's go into our work orders here. I have my work order. I can see my asset that's associated with this work order. And you can see we have a toggle beneath it again to change this. Again, that's an operator error. My operators are rubbish today. This is unplanned. This is offline since right now. And this time it's just that parent. There we go. So this means as soon as my team is doing a job, they see that asset is down. Oh, let's take it offline in the system. We then go through, we fill out our procedure, and we mark it as done. Now, we see a pop-up. Whenever there is an asset associated with a work order that has an offline status or a custom status associated with an offline time, it will pop this up when you close a work order. Now, this is just making sure nothing slips through the cracks. It's making sure we don't miss anything. Is this Delta robot operational? Yes, put it back online, or no, keep it offline. In this case, I very quickly identified and fixed that issue. So I'm going to say yes, put it back online. It's online in production, and that's since right now. There we go. So we can update from the asset page, and we can update via a work order as well. Third option in here would be via a request. So in my last example, I talked about how I've gone to a machine and I have noticed that's not running. That's not great. And that might have happened 10 minutes, 15 minutes beforehand. Someone else could have noticed it in that time, maybe an operator, maybe a facilities person, whoever it might be. But they might not have full access into MaintainX. They may just be a requester, seeing what I see right now. Well, the good news is you can also change asset status via a request. So I'm going to come in here and put in a new request. I'm going to put in my information. I'm going to choose which team this is going to. In my case, that is maintenance. This is a high priority, and it's related to my compressor. And I can say, whoa, this wasn't an operator error. This was actually an electrical fault. And I'm going to say that was unplanned since now. So what we're doing there is identifying that issue even quicker. The request then comes through to you. You can approve it into a work order, continue with the work as per usual, but we've identified that downtime early on. So to recap, we have via the asset itself, via a work order, and via a request. But Mary, I can hear you saying, even if someone just noticed it then, that might not be accurate. People might put things in incorrectly. I might want to change something. No problem at all. Let's go back to our asset page. I'm going to hop into my asset control panel here. And as you can see, I can see statuses. Now here, offline operator error. I'm going to say that's actually incorrect. So we go to the three dots and I edit it and I say that was not since 127. Don't be silly. That was clearly since 130. And I can update it there. There we go. So whenever you need to go back in and make edits, because it does happen, you can do so that way. I'm going to head into my table view right here and make sure that we're able to filter via offline online. I want to see everything that's offline right now. No problem. Filter for offline. I could even filter in here for my specific downtime reason. I could even filter for unplanned or planned downtime. So really just helping you get an overall view of what's going on within MaintainX. These are the manual methods. Should you like to have that automated? Should you like to have that information coming directly from your sensors? Let us know. We have a full sensor team internally here in MaintainX who can help configure that, help get you set up, and work with you towards a solution that works for you. All right. So, a couple of best practices to cover here. First things first, standardize asset statuses. There's a lot of text there. I'll let you read it. But essentially, we want to make sure that we have standardized asset statuses so that we can analyze our reports, so that we can do root cause analysis to know why is something going down so frequently. If I'm working with a customer who has 5 sites and they have 5 different offline statuses that are kind of saying the same thing in different organizations, we're not really going to be able to make easy comparisons based on that. But if they're using the same status, we are able to do so very easily. So make sure that your whole team is speaking the same language when it comes to your offline codes. Make sure it is fully comprehensible to everyone and make sure it is standardized across your organization. Second point, be diligent in tracking changes in asset statuses. So we give many ways of changing the status of assets via work orders, work requests, via the asset page itself, via API, if we want to automate. Even if something's missed, you can go back and you can fix it. Make sure we're diligent here. Make sure we're building an accurate picture of our downtimes across our organization. That makes sure we have clean data and it allows us to make informed decisions going forwards. And it makes sure that when we use this data to make our budgetary arguments, someone can't go in and immediately poke holes in our argument. Let's just keep it clean. So we know how to digitize assets. We know how to monitor our assets. Now, how do we measure and how do we improve? Measuring asset performance can be more tricky than it sounds, but it's essential. If we want to get into effective asset management, we have to measure how things are working. Historical and real-time insight is required to forecast the amount of parts we're going to need and the labor that we'll need as well in order to keep an asset running for its maximum lifespan. This matters because we want to minimize costs and we want to adequately allocate our resources. In terms of minimizing costs, we know, I say this on every single webinar, inflation is happening, it sucks, we have to live with it. The cost of unplanned downtime is rising. As a result, if we have to get rush orders on parts, for example, that's going to be costly. If we aren't able to produce for an extended period of time, that's very costly. Data related to the health of your assets allows you to strategically assign maintenance to preempt sudden failures. Minimize them. Let's make sure they happen as little as possible. It'll take stress off your shoulders, everyone's shoulders. In terms of allocating resources, like I was saying, rush orders on parts or last minute work assignment, which could include quite a bit of overtime in there, it really does drive up costs quite significantly. When we get into a more solid maintenance plan here, when we're able to measure how we're doing and improve as we go, it makes things more predictable, which in this case is a very good thing. It helps us budget, it helps us allocate our resources, especially our labor there, in a way that is manageable and sustainable. So here's a poll for you. How are you currently measuring the performance of your assets? For example, their availability, root cause analysis into your breakdowns, calculating OEE. Are you using an enterprise asset management system? Are you using asset health reports in MaintainX? Are you doing something manual like Excel, or are you not doing this yet? Again, I have my suspicions. Let's see. Exactly. About 70% of us are not yet doing so. And I think we all know, this is the goal. We want to be able to do so, but it can be hard to get there. First step, digitize. Second step, monitor. Third step, measure and improve. So let's see what we can get to at this stage. Let's get into our asset health reports. Personally, my favorite part of the system. There's 2 places I'm going to direct you to in here. The first one is a newer component, which I'm sure you've seen, but you might not have dived into too much yet, and that's okay. And that's our asset control center for an asset level breakdown of performance. And again, I'm going to use my trusty air compressor in here. Well, not so trusty, it's offline. I'm going to go to see more. It's just this gray box up top. Now, what I can see in here is my status history. I'm looking at a week right now, but I could take that back for 6 months. I can see my uptime, my unplanned downtime, and my planned downtime here. I can even see my vibration readings I have in here, which apparently I don't have any readings for yet. I should probably get on that. If you had multiple meters in here, you would also be able to see them there. So really a one-stop shop for your monitoring of this asset and your measuring of its performance. So pit stop, in our asset control panel here. Here's where the good information comes. We're in our reporting tab, and just so you know, the default we'll go to in here is our work order reporting. But I want to take a look into my asset health here right now. And let's go through these graphs that we have in here and how they can be helpful. So right at the top, we have current status. That is showing me what was my asset availability over the previous 30 days and which of my assets are currently online and offline. It's just a snapshot. So if you wanted to come in here and take a quick look, how's everything going? That's what you'd look at right there, this top bar. Next graph is my most problematic assets. And I just want to call attention to the fact that any of these graphs, I tend to have them grouped by asset, but we can absolutely change that. Excuse me. We can change it to be grouped by asset, asset type, downtime reason, location, organization, district, whatever's relevant for you. I personally keep it on asset, but I'm sure you can imagine how the rest of them come in handy when we want to segment our data down further. So most problematic assets is showing me which of my assets have the most unplanned downtime and the highest number of failures, and which are the most expensive in terms of my labor and my parts cost. The way we would use this typically is to filter for a wide enough time frame to get meaningful data so that this asset availability makes sense to me. Some things are going great, some things less so. And then I can work my way down the table, drilling into each asset and checking to see if they have PMs associated. If they do, we want to check that those work orders are being completed and that the associated procedure is accurate. We want to make sure that if something is down here in the, less than 50s, definitely, but any of our lower scoring assets here, our most problematic assets, we want to make sure that if that's a low availability, it's not because of something we're doing. We want to make sure our PM plan is solid and it's getting completed. Beyond that, we can look into the asset itself. What's the real problem that's going on there? Next one we'll take a look at here is our unplanned versus planned downtime. So in this graph, I'm trying to answer the question, do assets with more planned downtime have less unplanned downtime? Effectively, are my PMs working? For several PMs, you might have to take that asset offline, and that's fine, but we need to make sure that there's a trade-off there, right? What we want to do is look for assets that have more planned downtime than unplanned downtime to prove the impact of preventative maintenance. We want to drill into assets with the lowest planned downtime percentage and associate them with PMs accordingly. So see, planned downtime 65% right here, planned downtime 83% right here. So this one I'm going to want to dig into and take a look what's going on. Next graph will be unplanned downtime reasons. The question I'm trying to answer here is, what are my most common reasons for asset failure? So a lot of you ask me a lot of the time, how can I do root cause analysis in MaintainX? This is where we're going to start with that. You want to drill down into each downtime reason, starting with the most common to see which assets are most frequently going offline for this reason. And then we modify our PM plans for those assets as needed to address their most common reasons for failure. Scrolling down into a couple of those buzzwords we mentioned earlier, I'm looking now at MTBF and MTTR. So that's mean time between failures and mean time to repair. I'm trying to know how long on average does my equipment go without a failure? And I'm trying to know how long on average does it take us to get our equipment back online following a failure? So we want our MTBF to be high and we want our MTTR to be low. If our losing my words today. If our MTBF is trending downwards or if our MTTR is trending upwards, we want to look for our problematic assets. We want to see what's got a lot of unplanned downtime and assign it a PM plan. Flip that ratio. Then we're looking at total downtime in here. Are planned and unplanned downtime increasing for my equipment? You can use this to see whether the measures you're taking are effective. Because that's the thing, right? We can change what we want to do. All of these graphs have been giving us indications of, okay, here we want to edit a PM plan. Here we want to change something. Here, try something new. But how do we know if that's effective? In here. If we are trending upwards, not great. We want to be trending downwards as much as possible with our unplanned downtime. If we are trending downwards with our unplanned downtime, we can assume we're on the right track. If that's not going the way we want it to, we want to go back to the drawing board and change something. Finally, in here, I'm looking at availability over time, and this is pretty self-explanatory. Is my overall asset uptime increasing or decreasing? You guessed it. If it's increasing, that's good. If it's decreasing, that's bad. So again, this is helping us see if those changes we're putting in place are actually effective, if they are driving good results here. Now, that's a lot of information. What I would recommend doing in your account is coming in here and taking a look and thinking, what's most important to me to start out? If I was to pick one of these graphs, which one would I want to look into? And try using the insights I shared with you today. Take the recording of this call, go through what we just said, and make sure that you're making adjustments accordingly. There are some fun things in here that we can show. I want to give you 2 top tips to get started. My favorite thing, we hover over this graph right here. You can see my goals. I've got a little green smiley face because I'm on track. My organization aims for asset MTBF greater than 200 hours and asset MTTR less than 35 hours. And I am right within those parameters, so I'm happy. You can set goals in your account to make sure that this data is relevant for you and to make sure it's indicating when we're on track and when we're maybe not doing so well as well. I mentioned we want to choose what we want to focus in on. Quite hard to do that when we come in here and we're looking at a lot of information. So a tool you always have in your back pocket to take this information into a place and make it legible for you is a custom dashboard. I'm going to build myself a dashboard right now that I'm going to call Executive Summary. Very fancy. And I've added my most problematic assets chart into here because I want to see what is my least available asset and what should I pour into that asset. Now, something that I personally think is related to that is the amount of cost that I'm spending on my assets. I want to make sure I'm seeing if there's any correlations there. So I'm going to head into my time and cost report. I'm going to group it by asset. I'm going to order it by total cost. And I want to add that to my executive summary. There we go. Now let's take a look. Cool. This is what's important for my organization right now. For example, I'm seeing my Delta robot right there. It's one of my worst performing assets. And I'm also spending $3,000 on it, which is not very much when we see that I'm spending $30,000 on my jib crane. So maybe I want to invest a little bit more into that asset. Just a top tip off the top of my head there. Do something like this. Pull things into a custom dashboard so that you can get easy insight on your asset health and on any improvements we can make to our PM plan in order to support our asset management. Alrighty, best practices here. Make actionable plans based on asset health insights. Make addressing the leading causes of unplanned downtime your top priority. We want to identify our most problematic assets. We want to know why they're problematic. We want to see how have we been maintaining them, and we want to use those insights in order to improve. We assign a new PM plan to improve their availability and their planned and unplanned downtime ratio. We want more planned than unplanned downtime. Secondly, regularly review your asset health goals. Be dynamic with your asset health goals to drive continuous improvement. When the majority of your assets are surpassing your goals, celebrate first, then assess whether we should raise that bar higher. Can we take it to the next level? Can we improve even further? Thirdly, make asset criticality essential. We want to use that to make prioritization easy. When you're creating assets, I showed you how you can assign a criticality to that asset. That whole dashboard can be filtered by criticality. So we can make sure that we're looking first at our critical assets because that's where we're going to have the most impact. We then look at our important assets and only then do we look at our normal assets. This is really going to help us with our prioritization. There is so much that you can do here. And I just want to emphasize the most important thing is taking that first step. Choose one of the graphs that's going to be most valuable to you and try understand that. As you're doing so, work with our team, work with your customer success manager, work with your account manager, work with our support team. If you have any questions, concerns, or if you'd like some guidance and advice, it's exactly what we're here for. So with that in mind, I think we're ready for our live Q&A, and I'm going to ask my colleague Nick to hop off mute there and ask me some of the questions that we've assembled.
Hi guys, yeah, a fantastic session so far, Mary. We have a few questions that I'm definitely happy to bring to the table here. So first question was, how can I stay on top of my assets while on the floor? We have several of the same type, and I'd like to be sure I'm making the right one, maintaining the right one, excuse me.
Great question. I have two things to say here. The first thing is we want clear naming conventions. We never want two assets to be named exactly the same thing because it's just going to lead to confusion. We might do two PMs 1 month on one and none on the other. So if I'm looking in my account here, I have assets. There we go. I have my air compressor here with its detailed information. If I have another one with the exact same, I'm probably going to want to put some kind of number or identifying feature in that name as well so that my team can know the difference. That's why your naming conventions are really important. Secondly, each asset should have a QR code and a barcode. This is really handy because when we walk up to that given piece of equipment, we can just scan it in with our phone and we make sure we're looking at the right asset with its available PMs for us. So make sure there's no confusion there. So please focus on the naming conventions and make sure we're using QR codes and barcodes.
Beautiful. Next question was, with asset health goals, can I set specific parameters or thresholds so the performance is tracked in a way that I need it to be?
Yes, you absolutely can. So we're going to go into settings and into features. And let's see if I remember where this is. I believe it's under reporting. Yes, asset health goals in here. So that was settings, features, reporting. I'm on asset health, set asset health goals. So this is how I have it configured for my organization. I've got asset availability, planned downtime, mean time between failures and mean time to repair, percentages and hours in there. You can change this. You can configure that to numbers that make sense for your organization. Maybe we start a little easier on our team and then we increase it over time. That's entirely your prerogative. So again, settings, features, reporting, and asset health goals.
Amazing. Next question is there a report that specifically flags my most problematic assets?
Yes. Yes, I think that might have been asked before we did our last component there, but I'll just refresh. We go to reporting, we go to asset health, and that is the very first graph there, most problematic assets. I tend to have a group by asset. If you want to have a group by location, see what your most problematic locations are, or even organizations in here, you can do so. Even asset type, if you want to go in and see that, can be really handy. But yeah, we'd just be looking at most problematic assets, group by asset, if you wanted to see the individual asset that is giving you the most grief.
Next question is, my org is on a premium plan. What are some of the ways we can dive into health of our assets if we don't have the asset health tab?
You can move to enterprise. That's option one. And I recommend it so much because there are so many features that you and I will get to play with on that if you have enterprise. But there are a few things that we can do within the confines of the premium plan there as well. Couple of different things. I actually mentioned one of them at the end there on our session. So I'm back in work order reporting, which you do have available to you. I'm scrolling down. I like to look at time and cost group by asset. I think this is really helpful. I recommend it to customers on all plans. Seeing what we're giving the most spend on is really helpful. In this organization, I know for a fact this has my highest spend, but it's also got one of my highest asset availability ratios. So maybe that's great. So we're looking for imbalances there. So look at your time and cost. And then the other thing that you could do is export your data. You can export asset statuses to Excel. You'll then have to do a fair amount of data manipulation, but you can get that information out. The advantage of having asset health is that it's all in here for you, compiled together in different ways. So maybe try doing it manually, see how you find it, and then let us know if you need access to this asset health tab.
Amazing. And last question, I got a year's worth of readings on a group of my assets. Will I have to input them all manually?
No, you do not. You can import through our support team. So I would like to mention this across the board. I think, most customers know we can import locations, assets, and parts pretty easily through our support team. But we can also do meter readings. We can do asset statuses. We can do a whole host of things on the back end of the system to get data in one go. So if you are ever sat at the computer on MaintainX and you feel like, oh my goodness, I have to do this one task 100 times just to get the information in, you don't. Reach out to our team, head to support, there I am, and to contact support and just send a quick chat saying, hey, Nick, I'm looking to import this. Is that something you guys can offer? And he'll let you know if his team can help you out with that.
Absolutely.
And he's going to be very generous and say yes to every single one of your requests. Thank you, Nick. Was that our last question?
That was the last question.
Good. Okay. I love it when I know the answers, guys. That's always a good time for me. So let's just go over a quick summary here today. Some key takeaways. Use your CMMS to pave the way for effective asset management. Get rid of those buzzwords, get rid of the stress, use your CMMS. We want to digitize, we want to monitor, we want to maintain, and we want to measure. Simple as that. Digitize your assets in order to leverage connected data. We want our work order data to be connected to our assets and connected to our asset statuses. It is so much easier to do when everything's in one place. It makes it easier for your team, easier for auditors, easier for yourself. So why not? Third point, monitor the status of your assets to properly align your maintenance strategy. If we're seeing a lot of downtimes, we want to make sure that we know that we have the data. We don't just want to be wondering it in the back of our head or kind of having that anecdotal evidence. We want to make sure we have a complete status history that we can reference when we want to make any changes, when we want to change our PM plan or roll out a new procedure. Fourth point, regularly measure the performance of your assets to define a path to return on investment. Simply put, we want to make sure our assets aren't costing us too much, given the amount that we put into them at first. We want to make sure we're extending that lifespan, right? So let's look at those asset health reports. Let's make sure we're optimizing what we're doing and make sure we're reassessing our goals. Now, I've given you a lot of work, given you a lot of idea. So here's some resources to help you out with it. We have, of course, our Feature 101 and Office Hour webinars. Feature 101, we go into a specific topic, just like we did today, and Office Hours, myself and my colleague Tommaso answer all of your questions submitted live. It's a Q&A session for a full hour. Our Feature 101s are monthly and Office Hours are bi-weekly. We're back from summer now, so we'll be seeing you soon. You also have the MaintainX Academy, where you can learn at your own pace through certifications, guides, and courses, and MaintainX Community, where you can learn from each other. Very helpful. Remember, we're going to send you a 1-minute survey following the webinar. We really do appreciate hearing your feedback. So please let us know how you found this session. If you have any ongoing questions for now, please do feel free to contact our support team at any time. They're available 24/7, 90% and above satisfaction rating, response time of less than 3 minutes, and they're just altogether fantastic. So thank you for joining today. Thank you for learning. Keep an eye out on your inbox for that recording. And should you have any questions, reach out to your MaintainX team. We are always here to help you.